G'day guys, welcome back. I'm Todd, this is Toxic Garage Customs. If you haven't been here before, I work on rusty old cars. I try and save them one at a time, but I like to modify them as I'm going along. So you'll see behind me and as I walk through, a few of the things that I work on, that I'm working on, and things that I'm not yet working on. So there's all sorts of stuff. So if you like seeing people work on old cars, then follow me along, because there's bound to be something that you enjoy. But what am I working on at the moment? Not that. What I'm working on at the moment, this. I call it FrAnKeNInTeR. It is a 1952 International L110, and it's sitting on a HQ Holden 1-tonner chassis. 253 Trimatic 10-bolt diff, power steering, and it's going through the rebuild stage. It's going to be painted, it's going to have all sorts of things done to it, and it will need to be engineered. And I've already had an engineering inspection, and I've had a good tick of approval so far. In this episode, what are we doing? Demisters, demister vents. People have asked me, I have come to the party. So I have installed a full demister system in this. I'm actually waiting on some pipes, but other than that, I've installed a full system. So we'll talk about that. Now, this is something that, depending on the year model of your chassis that you're using, not the body, the chassis, you may need to do some things. I've mentioned before, you may need to have burst-proof door latches. You may need to have demisters. You may need to have a breakaway steering column and collapsible steering column. There's a bunch of different things you may need to do. Today, we're just concentrating on the demister. And I want to be clear, I'm not an expert on this, and I'm not an engineer. So this is my experience. It is not to be taken as advice. Get advice from your engineer. So before you engage in building a project like this, contact an engineer, discuss it with them, and see what they need from you, you to do. Because while the rules apply to everyone, there are some slight interpretation differences I've found from engineer to engineer. My engineer and I have a good communication, so all good. This particular chassis that I'm on here, HQ Holden chassis, is a January 1973 chassis. The Australian design rule for the requirement of demisters in light goods vehicles, which this will be, is considered because it's a 1-tonner chassis, didn't start until the 1st of July 1973. So I actually don't need to put demisters in this because of the date of the chassis. The chassis that I originally started this build was a later model chassis. It was a 74 model chassis. It would have needed demisters. It would have needed a couple of other things as well. The earlier the chassis, the less you have to do, the less ADRs you need to comply with. So I don't need to do this, but I like to be able to see out of my windows. So I've done it anyway, and I've made a whole video about it. So why don't you go and grab yourself a cool adult beverage or a warm cuppa, a comfy chair, put your feet up, and come back and have a look and see what I've done to get my windscreens demistered. Catch you shortly. Filmed before the passing of KISS guitarist Ace Frehley, RIP. Well, the first thing we need to determine with the demister is where to put it. We need to come up with a concept and come up with a design, mock it up, and see if it works. So I'm obviously on the left-hand side, the passenger side in Australia. But whether it was this side or that side, the most important thing, let's pretend I'm on the driver's side, is that the driver can see. So the air, most importantly, needs to demist essentially the wiper sweep. So this sort of area here. What I'm thinking is to have something that probably starts from about here somewhere and comes along here. So I guess, roughly speaking, something like that. Now I do have my garnish mould to go here, so I need to be careful that I don't put the demister too far forward, but that's okay. It's early stages. I've got clear, smooth area of dash through here. So what I'm thinking of doing is making something that is about that long, and from the top is just a slot. It'll probably have a few diffusers in it to perhaps direct the air further along. So inside like that, just to throw it out in the direction to cover as much of the screen as possible, and maybe even one this way. And then it'll come down to a bit of a funnel shape, be flat, funnel shape with a tube on the end, a circle on the end to join into the unit that I've got. So it doesn't need to be any fancier than that just at the moment, I don't think. As far as the actual aircon heater demister unit that I've got goes, this here is 50 mil, so 2 inches. So the circle that I make on the bottom of the funnel part that I'm talking about, I'll make 50 mil, and then it's just a matter of running a flexible pipe from one of these to one side, one to the other side, and the other two will be at your feet or chest height or whatever as a heater. I'll do the best to show you this, but it's a hard angle to get you to see. What I've worked out, I'm going to make a vent that's 300 millimeters long. I sat in the driver's side and worked out that this measurement just here, and it doesn't matter what it is, this measurement just here is the center of the steering column. So what I've done, I've come 100 mil this way, 4 inches, and I've gone 200 mil that way, 8 inches. So it's 12 inches in total. And the reason being is that that's where the center of the driver is, and this is your visibility area. This is a big long screen. So what I'm figuring is if I can get some air to come up here and then the rest of the air to come there, I should be able to demist the majority of the windscreen. I've made this up out of some cardboard, and that's the overall shape that I have in mind. So it will come up underneath the dash, and you can't see that, but it will sit below that. It'll be about that wide, 20 mil, 3/4 of an inch, something like that. So it'll sit up under the dash, and I'll make a flange to mount it. I'll probably weld it in there rather than make it removable. And what I'm thinking is to have that 50 mil 2-inch pipe come off the end here like that. And the reason being is that if I can get the air to come in from this direction, then I can naturally get it to sort of cover across this way anyway. So we'll see. So I'll play around with that in the first place. So I need to make up a bit there and squash it on the end to go on there. So I've just got this tube of liquid nails, and it's close enough to the right diameter. So all I'm going to do is just get a bit of cardboard and wrap it around it. I might as well just use the whole lot, I guess. Like that. Tape it off, and that will be the beginning of the tube that I'm going to make. Okay, so we got that. I'm going to cut this short, but I've got to make that come in there. I could either make it come in there or I could make it come in there. I'll have a play around. I'll make it in the first place. So that's going to be as simple as choosing a length. That looks good. And then I'm really going to be doing something like that. Somehow getting it to flatten out on the end while still holding its round shape there. And then that will be welded onto there. So I'm just going to play around with how I'm going to do that. But it'll be something like that at this stage. That or that. Yeah, probably something like that. I'll play around with that and I'll bring you back. I believe that should work just fine. So all I did was made a little rectangle off the end there, and then I made a circle. Now this will have to be cut out through the middle. I started off by making the one that you saw, and then I squashed it into shape to see what I needed, and then it came to me that if I make it in separate pieces, it'll be easier. So when I cut these side pieces out,
the side pieces will include this, and I'll probably even include the bits of metal for there. So I'll make a front and a back separately, I think. Or maybe I can try folding them. I'll see. I might make this out of one piece of metal just to really confuse the issue, or I could make it out of two and weld it together. But so when I make the sides, it'll have these pieces on there, and then when I make this end bit, that'll just be a round strip, and I'll, as I said, it won't have the full bodied center in there. I'll make two little crescent pieces that look like where the X's are, and I'll just weld those onto the side there, then attach the whole thing together. Then the only other thing that I think I need is just some little flanges, perhaps, coming off here to weld it up under the dash, or I'll probably just spot weld it, just tack it. It doesn't need to be fully welded. Just got to look nice from the upside. So I'll play around with that once I get there. But I think that's pretty simple. So the idea of doing it like this is I can now cut this whole thing apart, lay it out flat, and I know the shapes and sizes of what I need. I'll get to that and I'll show you. What I just did, I laid my template down and I marked out this side. I just adjusted the sizes a little bit, so this was exactly 100 mil and this was 30 mil and this is 300 mil through here. Why? Because it just makes it easy to work with round numbers rather than just numbers I'd randomly cut out. Added this flange on here, I shortened it up a bit, added 20 mil slither through there to be this piece here. Then I duplicated the whole lot across. So using my calipers, I went from the corner of this and scribed an arc over here so that that was exactly the same distance as that. Did the same on this end, and then I simply joined those points up, knowing that I had a 300mm measurement. That way this angle's the same, those lengths are the same, this angle's the same. I also duplicated that flange and I've extended it out there so that when I fold this over, I can use that piece of metal, shorten it up a bit and make that piece there, and the same there, so that I can use that piece to come up here to cap the end. The only piece out of this that I don't have is the piece to fill in that bit there, because it looks a little bit hard to make, so I'll just cut a little square out. I'm ready to go through and cut the perimeter of this out. I marked it with a scribe so I could see it. Then I went over it with a Sharpie. Then I went back over it with a scribe so I could see the marks, and that way the errors don't matter. So other than that little piece there, the only piece that I need to make is the tube with the little crescents to attach onto this. So I'll go through, cut this out, and then I'll be able to fold it through here, fold it through there, and then fold these, oh, don't fold those, fold this piece and trim them, weld it and so on. So I'll give it a clean up and then I'll do that. Ace freely, eat your heart out. Just a bit of stupidity. But this is what we have. I cut it out and then I set it on here and marked out a duplicate of it so that if it works, I've already got a model. And you can see I've put all these relief cuts and everything ready to fold. So let's put it in the folder and see if we can fold it up. But firstly, we'll just make sure that the workshop chicken's happy. So, are you happy with the progress? Is everything going okay? You're thinking of taking up MIG welding, are you? So what do you reckon? What do you reckon? Yep, you happy with that? You like this? Suit you? Funny things. They taste good too. Other than the fact that I'm not as strong as I used to be, it was a bit hard to bend, that's come up really well. I was just looking at it, in hindsight, I didn't need to put these little cuts here for the bit on the end because this is where our 50mm is going to come on. I could have just left it, I think, and that just becomes part of the tube. So that's okay, I just won't cut it on the next one, a little bit of welding. So I believe that all I need to do is bend this flange up like that. I'll adjust that, and then weld that up, grind it off and all that sort of stuff. And this one here, I should just need to bend that down. Bend that down, and once again straighten it up. I'll fix that up, but other than that I'll cut it to length, and then we can put our little circular bit on there. That's when this will come into place. So again, I'll cut that piece out. That'll weld onto there. Oh, and I've got to cap that. Didn't realise that. Got to cap that bit. So maybe I can leave that piece on there. Yes, I'll leave an extra piece on there for the next time. So that can go on there. And other than that, we're looking pretty good. Then I'll go through and I'll put those diffusers in here. That'll be pretty straightforward, I think. Got that piece all welded up. Using flux core welder was probably harder than the actual fabrication itself, but I'll stop complaining about that one day. So that's looking pretty good. It's got a little bit of a lean to it there. Wasn't intentional. One side was longer than the other. I could have fixed it, but figured it doesn't matter. So that'll go up under the dash, as we know. So now I've got to make this piece. So I've got that, but if I want to work out how much steel I need, then I'm just going to use this and it will tell me. So if I just put a mark here, start with that point there and roll it along, then it tells me I need that much steel as a strip to make my circle. I'm using that because that was what I started with. So that is about 170mm. So what I've done over here, I have a strip of metal, which I already had, and I decided that the width of that ruler was a really good wide width for it to be, so I laid that down, scribed a mark along it, and checked that it was long enough, and I should just be able to get my 2 circles out of that, one for this one for the other one. So I'll cut that. I'll cut it a little bit too long, bend it around, Makes sense just to bend it around that, or a bit of pipe or something. Probably a bit of pipe might be stronger. And then we'll make the little bits on the end. Crescents. Gonna keep this as simple as I possibly can. So that's the ring that I just made. This is 2 off-cut pieces of steel. That's actually the off-cut pieces from when I whitened the rim on the back window for the urethane glass. So I've got those positioned this distance apart, and I did that by just eyeballing it. And then I'm going to sit this just there. And what I'll do is go through and tack it in place. And once I've got it tacked in place, then I'll cut all the excess off. Why make it hard? Okay, got that all welded together. I'm really happy with the way it's come up. The welding's pretty dodgy, but that's just welding. But plenty strong enough, so see it's doing the job there. And I've just been playing around with where I'm going to put these diffusers in, and I've decided that I'm going to run them down to there, which is halfway through this line here, so that air can go in, hit the diffusers, and then hopefully get dispersed off in different directions. And I've just chosen 5. This is 300mm long, so I've come in 50mm, 100mm, 150, 200, 250. And I've got them pointing in different directions throughout the screen. And what I've done, I've just got this strip here, and it's a bit wider than that, so it's about 25mm wide. And I think the easiest way to go about this, I'm just going to get an angle grinder and cut a slice down each one of those lines, just on one side. And then I'll slide this down so it'll stick out the side a little bit. I'll just put some tack welds onto it, and I think that's about it. I don't think it needs any more than that. It really just needs to throw the air in the right direction. Just thinking, if I can, I might just put a tack or 2 on the other side, just sneak this welder in there and put a tack just so it doesn't rattle. But other than that, I think it should be okay. So we'll give that a go. And there we have it, 2 window demister vent plenums. Look a bit like a plenum off an RB or something. So they're not the most beautiful thing in the world, but I have a left and a right. Well, in fact, they're both exactly the same as each other, but one will be on the left-hand side of the windscreen and one will be on the right-hand side of the windscreen. Pipes going into them. And you can see what I did there. To put these diffusers, as I'm calling them, in, I just marked a line, 25mm, just a nominal mark, so that the air goes through there, and basically those diffusers sort of are halfway down through the 50 mil, so the air can go through. A lot of air will go up the first one and then consecutively with each. And I sort of figure that the fact that this is shorter, it'll even out how much air goes there. Absolutely no science-based approach, but I'm thinking about it. At the end of the day, it's got to blow air onto the windscreen. So yeah, I just put a tab of steel in there, tacked it on both sides, and then just cleaned it up. And the reason I put the cut there was it was the easiest way to hold it on an angle. And I put them on different angles to direct the air into different locations. So I think what I'm going to do is put some tabs off the side of them, and I'll probably just weld them up underneath the dash. But from the top, what I'm thinking is just have a slot cut in the dash that's only, say, even half that wide, rounded on the end. I was actually thinking of just a circle with lines between it on each one. So just 5 little elongated slots through there, or I could make one big long one. I don't need to see down into this great big void through the windscreen. All I really need is air to go up there. So I think I'll do the individual slots. Shouldn't be too hard. Drill a hole, like in the dash, drill a hole, cut between it with something, jigsaw or a little panel saw, and do that on each of them. And then hopefully we'll have a nice, attractive looking thing. So what I'm going to do to this, I'll give it a bit more of a clean up to get some of this welding dust and stuff off it. And then I'll put it into some black etch primer, mainly on the inside so it doesn't rust and so you can't see it, but I'll do the outside as well. But I'm happy with the way they came up. Could I have bought them? Yeah, I think they're about $35 or $40. And this took me a good part of probably 3/4 of a day. But you know what? I made them, and that's all that really matters. So I'm happy with it, and that's really the most important thing. I'm happy with it, and had some fun doing it. All we've got to do now is get them installed. I've got to be careful I don't shoot myself in the foot here, because I've got to put those demister ducts in, and they will be coming out in this area here. So this is the item, and it'll be up underneath where that blue tape is, so up under here. But also what I need to take into consideration is the fact that I've still got to put my wipers in. And this is one of the old wiper holes, or the old wiper hole, and presumably that'll probably be a similar spot. So hopefully I can leave that one there, and then about there I will need to put another one. Now my ducting that I've just made will run from here through to just there, and that's where the wiper is, and it all fits into that same space underneath the dash. I've now got you looking up underneath the dash. Hello. So this is where it's on the passenger side, left hand side. So this is where that's going to go, and that piece of blue tape at my finger, that's where the wiper motor is going to need to go. Not the motor, but the gear head. And this is it. And what this is off a Mini. So Minis and Jaguars and things have the same setup. It's also, you can buy this sort of setup from Hot Rods. So that needs to go through here, like that, and then this needs to sit in behind it. So the reason I say that is that I don't want to go putting these guys in only to find that I haven't left enough room for my wipers. So I'm hopeful that I'm going to have some wipers in the next couple of weeks. I'm not buying new hot rod parts. I'm going to be using Jaguar. I've actually sourced some, and the guys just got to take them out of the car and send them to me. Why? Because quite frankly they're cheaper. I've used Mini ones in my truck. They work fine. They're half the price of buying brand new hot rod ones. I don't know. My other ones haven't let me down, so I like recycling. I'm a tight ass. So we've got these. How they work is that a cable goes through that rounded bit on the bottom. Let me change the camera. cable comes through here, and if I turn that, you'll see a gear moving inside there. And what happens, it's just a cable that is wound like that. And as the cable goes backwards and forwards, it goes like that. And what it's doing is turning this, and this is where the wiper attaches. So it goes like that, backwards and forwards. Pretty simple. The good thing about them is, if you mount it that way, then your wiper will do one thing. And if you put it up the other way, then the wiper does the opposite thing. So you can come up from the top of the windscreen, the bottom of the windscreen. But what I did on Toxic was I've got one mounted that way and the other one mounted that way. And what that does is have my wipers do that, because that's what I wanted.
And I'll say it again.
Do that, because that's what I wanted. Otherwise you could have it set up like that. So I'll probably have the same setup, one that way, cable running through. And then what happens is the cable gets remotely mounted pretty much anywhere you want. So what I'll most likely do is put the cable over the other side of the truck there, over near the steering column. But if I decide that I want to put it over this side, I can do that as well. So I can, let's say I've got it mounted over here somewhere, the motor I should say, if I didn't say that, the motor over there, then the cable coming through to the first gear head, and then around here. And you can bend the cables. They've got a fair bit of flex in them. So what's good about that is if you use a typical traditional mechanical type setup, like this one, which is off a Commodore, and don't get me wrong, they're completely useful, but you've got to accommodate all of these rods and everything. But what you have there is the motor, plug it in, connect it to your wiper switch and so on, and that's essentially your gear heads, and that turns it backwards and forwards with all those arms and so on. I like using the cable setup, because I have more maneuverability, but also I want to keep this vent, and I can't use something like that under this dash, because that vent gets in the way of everything. It's a little bit hard to show you, but that big box there, right in the middle, that's where that vent is. So that is in the way, and I don't want to lose it because I like it. So hence the cables. There's plenty of room in there for the cable. Long-winded rant, but what it comes down to is that I'm not going to install these just yet until I get my wipers sorted out. Beautiful. Well, I think that's going to work just fine. So I've got that in. I'll show you underneath the dash in a moment. And I've had it both ways. So I've had it, as I said, cable up the top, cable down the bottom. Fits both ways, so that's perfect. Let's have a look under the dash. Okay, so I'm laying in dust on the floor underneath the steering wheel. So let's have a look. So that is the wiper head thing just there, the wiper box, and our plenum is going to sit like that. I can't tell you how awkward this is at the moment. I've got my hand through the gauge hole, my head on a pedal, and I'm trying to hold a camera and a plenum. So it goes like that. That should be just fine, I think. So you can see that patch that I replaced, that's about where it's going. It's going to sit like that. And then there's enough room for gauges where my hand is, and the cable to run through that, top or bottom. So I'm very happy with that. So that means that I can start putting these in, making some tabs and getting those installed and cutting holes in the dash. That's of course if I can ever get out of the car, because I'm not really as flexible and agile as I'd like to be. Oh. I've put the holes in one side of the dash for the vents, so I'll show you what I've done there, and then I'll show you how I went about it. I'd previously worked out where I wanted the demister to go, and it's not centered to the windscreen, which might seem a bit unusual, but the steering wheel isn't centered to the windscreen either, it's closer to the door. So I've based it on the driver's side, so I've got the demister centered to the driving position, and then, as I said, the air is going to come out in various directions, with some more heading towards the center of the screen which hopefully will, the fact that it's not centered, it will still reach over there. So there are 6 slots in my plenum that I've put there, and each one of those slots is 50 mil long, so, or 2 inches. So what I've done, I marked it out on a piece of masking tape. I've got a couple of pieces there so that I can put a drill there without sliding all around the place. I don't want to use the center punch because I might dent the dash. So I marked it out, and I've got each 50 mil sector marked out. And what I decided I would do, because I don't want to see any of this, I've decided to come in 5 mil from either end. So the slot that will be in the dash is 40 mil wide, 40 mil long, I should say, and it'll be about 10 mil wide. So this is about 20 mil wide from here to here, 20 mil by 50. So it'll be 10 mil wide. So there'll only be half of this exposed, and the slot will come in 5 mil and come in 5 mil. Now I'm using a step drill, looks like a Christmas tree, to drill the holes for that. So what I needed to allow is that when I drill the hole, if I drilled in right on the spot that I wanted it, then it would come out too far. So I've come in a further 5 mil. I'm using a 10 mil hole, so that will be 5 mil this side of the hole, 5 mil that side of the hole. So at the end of the day, these 2 holes are 30 millimeters apart. When I open it up, this will make it 5 mil wider that way, 5 mil wider that way. It'll end up at 40 mil wide inside my 50 mil area that I have in my plenum. So I'm going to drill some holes, and then once I've got the holes, then I can join them all up. Okay, well I think that's come up okay. Now I drilled this hole in the first place just so that I could get an orientation to where I was under the dash. You'll see I've drilled the holes with the step drill. They're 10 mil holes. As I said, 30 mil centers. It's made a 40 mil slot. And then I've joined them up with my panel saw. I've just got to go through and straighten it up. I'll do that with a file. I could use a die grinder, but I'd prefer a little bit more control. Now let's see how our plenum sits under there. Okay, so once that's painted black inside, I think that will be absolutely perfect. Very happy with that. It's good not to rush into things sometimes. So why? I've got these in. I haven't cleaned them up, but I've got the other side cleaned up. I was going to weld the plenums up under the dash, as I said. I'm not going to do that now. I'm going to make them removable. So I'm still going to weld some tabs on the side. So I'll just make up some simple tabs like this, put them on the side, just weld them there, probably just about 4 of them. And then I'll drill some holes through them. But what I'm not going to do is weld those tabs to the dash for 2 reasons. Well, 1 reason actually. I want to make them removable, and I want to make them removable because I don't think I'm going to be able to get those wiper heads out if the plenum is welded in front of it, because it's got a long shaft on it, and I don't think if they ever need to be serviced, then they won't be able to come out. I like to make things serviceable. So what I'm going to do is just get something, just a small thread, something like this, maybe even smaller. I think that's an M6, or maybe even an M4. It only needs to be small. And I will most likely, once I've got the tabs in place, drill 4 holes in the dash, drop something like that down, then weld it from underneath, then cut the head off, and then weld up the top and make it flush. So you won't see it from the top, but that'll just sort of hold it in place. I could try and get the thread and hold it up underneath and weld it and so on. I just think it'd be too hard to do. Whereas if I just do that and do a little bit of reparative work, then all good, because I've already got to fix, got to do some body fill where I did these rust repairs, and
and so on. So that's all good. So I'll drop probably 4 threads down. I'll have 4 flanges or tabs on that plenum, put it up, and then just put some nuts on underneath. What I will do is I'll put something like a sealer, body, probably not seam sealer, but a silicone type thing, not really sure exactly, but around between the plenum and the dash, just so that the air doesn't leak out. It'll still be removable. You'll just need to give it a yank to break that seal and then clean it up and put that seal back on once it goes back together. But that's nothing new, is it? So they're looking really good, and it wasn't intentional, but I think they actually look pretty good in comparison to that. And it's completely by chance. There's 6 of these and there's 6 of these, but I'm going to own it. I've made up those tabs. I made up 9 of them because that's how long the piece of metal was, but I'm only going to use 4 on each. So what I've done, I've put a smaller hole for a tack weld or a spot weld, and a larger hole so that when the time comes I can drop the hole through the bolt through the dash, and then put a washer and a nut to hold it in place. I've made the hole a bit bigger than it needs to be, so it gives me a little bit of wiggle room. So I'm going to probably weld one on there, and one on about there on each side, and that way I believe it'll be supported well enough. So 2 there, 2 over there. I'll put those on, and then I'm going to hold this up underneath the dash. I think the side closest to the windscreen I'll probably need to trim the tabs down, but I figured I'd just make them all the same at the moment. Hold it up under the dash where it needs to go. I'll mark out where these holes are, and then from under the dash I'll drill some holes up. Then I will come back down through the dash with some slightly bigger holes and drop these bolts down, weld them from underneath, cut the tops off, hold this up, washers and nuts. Should be done. As easy as that. I'm underneath the dash here, and you can see I've got the plenum for the left hand side, the passenger side, sitting in there. I'm only going to be able to use 3 of the tabs. This one here is a bit close to the windscreen, and I don't think I'll be able to get a bolt in there, but 2 are holding it fine. 3 will be perfect, so I got no problem with that. So I've just got bolts sitting in there at the moment, and it works well. So let's have a look from the top. I'm really happy with the way it's positioned, the way it's all positioned there, so that's good. If you look down, you can see the plenum below there. So what I've got, these bolts, this one here I've just got sitting there, but what I have prepared is I got a bolt and I cut the head of it off, and then I've just got 2 nuts and a washer there. And the reason being is that what I'm going to do is hold it from underneath like that, and where I've cut the head off, I've just made a tapered hole in the dash, and I've also just ground the edges of the bolt off. So I'm going to get some weld on that, and then I will have a stud coming out of the dash, underside of the dash, rather than bolt heads. Then I can just grind that off and clean it up. I've got the 2 nuts there so that I can hold it with a socket because I don't want to burn my fingers, and the washer I put there just to stop weld slag getting in the thread and jamming stuff up. So hopefully it won't be needed, but I'm not going to be concerned working with it that way. So I'll weld that up and then we should be good. Well, I'm getting really hungry,
And I don't mind saying, because I've been working hard and it's hot in here. But more importantly, I've got one of those vents in. Let's have a look. Okay, so under the dash, I've got those 3 captive threads, studs, and as I said, I'm not using that back one. This thing is rock solid. Like I can move the whole cab swinging off it. So from the top, this is what we have. So this is where the studs were. As I said, I made a slightly larger hole, ground the threads down a bit, put it up, welded it all up, ground off the excess. All good, rock solid. And that's what we have. Redundant, I'll leave it there. Other than that, we're all good. Bit of a cleanup, bit of paint, that part's ready. Remember guys, it costs absolutely nothing to subscribe. So why don't you hit that subscribe button and you can see my regular updates fed to you rather than having to come look for them. And if you've got a project you're working on or you'd like to comment on anything that I'm doing, please drop me a comment. I always read them and I always reply. Actually really enjoy reading your comments. And finally, sharing is caring. If you think someone you know would enjoy what I do here, then share it with them. Encourage them to subscribe as well and drop a comment. You see where I'm going here. Well, had a bite to eat, sat down, got the second one in. Took the column out. So that's the second one. You can see the wiper box there, butt up against it. And that's the other side over there. I think they've come up really well. I am kind of expecting that I might have to modify it just a little bit, each of them, because where that wiper box is just a little bit closer than I thought. But that's okay. I might just have to cut a section, bang it in, weld it back up again. It's not going to affect anything, but I'm really happy with it. When we look on the outside, this is that wiper box and it's just sitting out a bit further. I'm probably going to, when the time comes, build a little standoff there anyway. So I don't know, I'll just make something, either spin it out of alloy or make something up just to go from the body out to the adjuster nut there, and then the wiper will sit on, but it is sitting out a bit further than it should be. So I pulled that one out, the driver's side one, cut one of the tabs off, and now I've managed to get that in. Really well, so that's good. So that only leaves 2 things to do. One is that sticker, demister vents, gone, one less thing. And the other thing is even more important, and that is to go just here and go demister. Well, we've been kicking some big goals. So continuing on the theme with the interior, I think I'm going to start mounting the air conditioning demister heater unit. So I've mentioned before, I'm not going to be connecting the actual air conditioner, but I need the demister and the heater will just come with that anyway. So I'll show you the unit. So as best as I can show you, that's it there. It's pretty simple. It is an air conditioner, as I said, and heater and a fan. And I didn't really plan for it to be quite that big, but I can get it to work. One thing I do like is to have a functional glove box. So I could use that whole space up there, but then I'd end up with no glove box. I don't want to do that, so I'm mounting it below here. Now I think it'll be okay. The pipes will be visible because there'll be those pipes going off to the demisters and to wherever else they go. So I will probably make some sort of just a little rolled pan that comes around here, and I may do something over the other side that I've mentioned before underneath the column just to neaten it up. So what I've done, I don't want to steal real estate here from in here, so I'll turn some light on. So what I've got, it's just sitting there on a milk crate, and I want the top of the actual unit itself to be level with this plane here. And this plane here is level with that bit just there where my finger's pointing. So that'll be the base of the glove box. So what I'm going to do is make up a bit of a structure. So I've got a piece of square hollow section. It's just sitting on a lip on the bottom of the dash here at the moment. and I'm going to take it back and attach it somehow to that part of the firewall. I may weld it, I may not. Hello, Loretta. I'll either put a bracket and have it so it can unbolt, or I'll weld it. I'll make that decision shortly. Then once that's in place, I'll mount this piece to it. Now this piece, I will just put a bit of a tab that goes and sits on top of that, I think. Or maybe I could even run it down and put a riv nut in. I might do that actually, or one or the other. And the reason for this one is that then this plate on the air conditioner, I'll move that out of the way. This plate on the air conditioner, it's adjustable, quite adjustable. I'll have it mount to the bottom of this piece of steel. And then all I have to do, animals. Then all I have to do is mount the back of it, and there's a mount there, and I'll just make a tab that goes up somewhere. I've positioned it in a place that I'm pretty sure is going to work. The heater pipes come through here. The air conditioner pipes go over there. I'm not going to even cut holes for those, but I do need to cut holes for these. And on the engine bay side, the inner guard bolts from there through to there. So all of this part here is below the inner guard, and this part here is the engine bay. And where I've got that heater position, I'm pretty sure my pipes are going to come out in this sort of area here somewhere. So that should work. I've got my battery box. It's going to sit here. A lot of people like to hide them. I like to keep them in the engine bay because I just find it really convenient and practical. They're not the most attractive thing, but hey. So battery there, heater hose is coming out there. I think that should work pretty well. So I guess without any further ado, what I need to do is make that piece up, make this piece up, put them in place and start working that out. Let's do that. I didn't bother filming it, but I ended up moving the heater back a bit. So where it was, it all worked, but it was sitting further forward than I really wanted it. So what I've done is essentially I made up some different bracketry, and I've moved it back about 50 mil, which has given me a lot more clearance through here. Now this isn't what I'm going to be using, these are plumbing fittings, but they're the same size. So when I actually get my pipes in, that'll sit right back there like that, and it will give me enough room to be able to run a couple of pipes, some up, some down, and so on. I'll probably only use 3 of the holes. I'll probably have one coming straight out here, one going to the heater, maybe a blocked one, to the demister, a blocked one, and one going over to the driver's side so that you get heat or air on you. And then the blank one I may end up using, but I may not. But what it allows me is I can run some pipes up, some down, and you might remember I'm going to make a metal panel that sort of rolls underneath the dash. Far more attractive than that, but it'll block the pipes off. It'll come from here across and kick up over here. Same on the dash underneath the steering column to neat it up, hide all the pipes, hide all the ugliness. And I can still get a full depth glove box through there, which was the plan. So that was good. And obviously I've now got the cab on the chassis, so I'm not sure what order you're going to see the video in, but cab's on the chassis at the moment. So
what I had done before putting it on was I worked out that where those little X's are, I'm probably going to run my heater pipes in that sort of area, maybe through those holes, those previous, or not previous holes, those dents, because the heater hoses, I should be able to run through here, straight to there. So nice neat run, keep it neat and tidy. Battery tray will be here. And this is where the inner guards go. And I did put a sample hole there, a test hole just there. And I was wondering whether I could run my heater hoses out there. And then I decided if I just run the heater hoses behind the air conditioner, the heater box, and over here, they'll be in the cab, out of the way, pop through here, keep it neat and tidy, and it'll be easier to change hoses if I need to. So it's got to be a bit tight in behind the heater. So that's a good thing. And now that I've got all this together, I will once again put all the fancy bits back in there, I would say. Booster, steering column, all that sort of stuff. Just have a play around. I have had it all going before, but not since I've modified the bodywork to neaten it up. So I'll just make sure that it all fits together well. The cab will be off again. Hopefully it'll be off at least one more time. Not hopefully, it'll be off at least one more time. Hopefully it won't be off too many more times than that. I'll do some test fits and so on. I've got to get my doors back on so I can work out where my runners can be for my one-piece glass and all that sort of stuff. And I want the doors to be in place so I know that when the time comes that I can take the door on and off by getting access rather than make it so that I can never get the door back off again. So Ed, what do you reckon? What's got more horsepower, you or the 253? Opinions?
I've got a bigger donk.
With the cab sat back on the chassis, it makes it easier to work out these hoses. So that's what I've done. So this hose here is actually a Commodore hose. I just happen to have lying around. It's got a good angle on it. So I'll probably end up using a couple of those. I've just got another straight piece here just for the purpose of it at the moment. So I'll have that sitting nicely along the side of the rocker cover. And then down in here, let's get some light onto it. I've cut a couple of holes through the firewall. I used one of the existing dimples, like this one, it was down there, and one beside it. So I've got those running side by side. And it's a nice entry angle and it's pretty invisible. And looking from the inside of the cab here, this is where they come through. So you can see this hose here, there's some air around it. It's a smaller external diameter of this one, so ideally I'll use this one. But I may put some grommets around there as well. But this will pop across. I'll get it up as high as I can along here, and then the point where it connects is just there. I'm hoping I can get a nice neat flow of the pipe onto the back there. There seems to be enough room and I think it'll be okay, so I'm not really concerned. So I'm looking pretty good there. I don't think there's a great deal more I can do to that just at the moment because I'm waiting for the flexible hoses to arrive. I've ordered them, they should be here any day. So once I've got that, then I can play around with ducting it up to everything. And then it's a matter of putting some power to it, I guess, and trying to get air to blow. I could connect power up now, maybe I'll do that. I haven't got the air conditioning wired up, as I've said, but I have got just a simple wiring set up here. All it really takes is that the mounting bolt on the back is mounted to the body. That's the earth. There's two motors. They're both earthed to that same point. And then throughout the wiring here, there's a red wire that's supplied that just needs to be spliced into the system, and a green wire. I presume the green wire is something to do with the aircon, maybe the thermostat or something, but I'm not using that at the moment. So all I need to do is connect earth to the body of the truck, which I've just got off one of the bolts, and then I've got an alligator clip with a wire onto the red wire, the power, and that should make my motor run. Got nothing, but I've got this, so 3 settings. So when I turn this on and put power there, that'll light up and air should come out. So that's on the low setting. Second and the highest. So if you look at my beard blowing the breeze, I think there'll be plenty of air there to not only keep the cab cool, but for the demister as well. Now, as I've said in the past, I'll probably only be using 3 of these. So if I try and block one off, then there's a lot more air comes out of the others. So I think with 4 it'd be fine, and with 3 it's going to be fantastic. So all I'm waiting on now is the pipes, and I will have a demister. Good days. Disconnect the battery and we're done. Well, I hope you found that enjoyable. I actually really enjoyed the experience of making that whole system, as unnecessary as it was. And as I've said, I could have bought some of the components as well, but I like making things and I can customize it how I want it. I've moved along from what you've seen, and I've actually done a bunch of other things as well. So I'm in front of you. So remember, if you want to see where I'm up to, keep coming back and you'll see the full progress, the full completion of this build eventually. In the next episode, we'll probably be moving along with our electric windows and one-piece glass in our doors. But if not, it'll be something else. So until then, remember, your car, your project is not going to build itself. So put the phone down, step away from the TV, go out into your shed, garage, muddy boggy patch, wherever you are, pick up a spanner, an angle grinder, whatever, and do some work on your project, because it ain't going to build itself. But remember, do it safely. I'll catch you next time. Thanks again. Well, will you look at that? Fabio got a first prize. Well done, big fella. And so did Harley. Good on you, little fella. 2 blue ribbons.